Welcome, Dr. Blacher. We're so glad that you're able to join us this afternoon as we talk a little bit about your journey.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we always like to hear firsthand from our nurse educator colleagues that have been successful. We know that in 2022, NLN reported that only 64% of nurse educator colleagues were successful on the CNE exam. Our mission here at Dr. Sellers Educate is to support every single nurse educator to achieve success on the CNE, CNE novice, and CNE clinical exam. So we thought it would be great for Dr. Blacher to join us just so you all can hear firsthand a little bit about her journey. So Dr. Blacher, why don't you just start out telling everybody a little bit about your journey as a nurse educator?
Well, I started as a nurse educator in 2012. It was my first position as a faculty, and it's the only one I've had. And I walked into this position. It was the same place where I got my master's in nursing education. So I had all the background information, but the application when you're a faculty member is so different when you're a student taking these courses. So there was a learning curve there, but I had a wonderful supervisor, and my colleagues in the department I worked in were very generous with their time and teaching me. And I loved it. It turned out that I loved teaching online. It was only online. It's not hybrid, not face to face. So that was kind of different as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of experience when COVID hit, where everybody was pivoting and learning to teach online. I already had a background. So that was really, really helpful. I had was I wasn't pressured to take the CNE, but all my colleagues already had it. So I kind of put the pressure on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was taking several different review courses from different places, and they were great. They had the same information as in the handbook, but that was it. It was one and done. There was no follow-up, no coaching there, and I was kind of like left there, and I needed the discipline of really what to study for the exam. And that's where you come in.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Blacher, for sharing a little bit about your journey. And I think you said a lot of great things already. We know that mentorship is so important. I, like you, even in my undergraduate program, it was clear from those experienced faculty the value of certification and how that is the mark of professionalism. And it sounds like you had mentors and role models that were already there at your university to kind of encourage you and also push you a little bit to help you stay focused and achieve that certification. I think that's great. Now, as you talk a little bit about Dr. Blacher, your road towards certification, and you mentioned that there were several different study resources that you had available. What 3 strategies would you like to share with the colleagues today that really helped you achieve success? Because we know there can be a lot of competing priorities, shall we say. I often share my story that it took me 8 years to take the CNE exam because life happens. But what would you share as the takeaway, specifically those 3 key strategies that help you be successful?
I think the first thing is to do some self-reflection and know what you know. Find out what you know, because I was doing this job for many years. And I just, was doing it. And to have the discipline of going to a live session every week, the CNE in 60 days, was really, really helpful because it focused in on the important things. It wasn't the only thing I did, because you have to read the recommended resources. But you have to assess what you know. Going through the CNE blueprint, test blueprint, was really, really helpful. So that was one thing. And then you have to figure out what your particular learning style is, just like we have to do with our students. Can you just take a review course? Some people do it once and they pass. Some people need more. need watching, repeat videos, or they need to go to more webinars. They need flashcards. You need to know how you learn and how that sticks. And the other thing that was really, really helpful was the coaching that I had from you. And whether you get coaching from places, your mentors where you work, or from you, which was part of the CNE in 60 days, that really focused in on, like 3 weeks before the exam, what I really needed to concentrate on. I knew what I knew, and the things that I was shaky on or muddy points, that's what we focused on. And I think those 3 things were the most successful ways for me. And that's what everybody has to find out, what works for them.
Yes, I think those are 3 excellent strategies. Number 1, I just want to recap to make sure we got them all. Number 1 is doing that self-reflection and really just seeing where your knowledge gaps are. And I would just add one recommendation that we do have is using that detailed test blueprint, as you mentioned, to help you figure out, what are my knowledge gaps? We often teach based on either how we were mentored to teach or how we saw others teach. But when it comes to the CNE, it really is about application and comprehension of theories and concepts in a way that will allow us to answer those questions correctly on the CNE exam. It may be work that we do every single day, but it's understanding those underpinnings that are associated with the teaching strategies and evaluation strategies that we're using in our everyday learning experiences with our students. So I totally agree. Self-reflection and just knowing where you are related to your gaps is a really important strategy. And then number 2, you mentioned it really just having the support that you need, coaching, so you feel like you have that consistent support. I think the CNE in 60 days, there is some sense of accountability. I think you mentioned that earlier, because you are showing up every single week for 6 weeks for an hour and a half with other colleagues. It's a small group, but it does add a sense of responsibility and accountability. And then I think the third takeaway that you mentioned really is making sure that as you're moving forward on that journey, that you are dedicating the time that you need with the right resources so you can cross that finish line. So I think those are excellent strategies. And I would just ask, what one piece of advice, Dr. Blacher? You've already given so much great advice already, but is there one additional piece of advice that you would share that you really feel like is a takeaway for everybody today that is listening to this wonderful testimonial?
I think staying the course, having confidence in yourself, because you have the ability, you're already doing the job. So, and be kind to yourself.
Oh, that's wonderful. Being kind to yourself. Sometimes as nurse educators, we can be so critical of ourselves, and when life gets in the way or we feel like we haven't mastered a certain competency, you're absolutely right. We can be very critical of ourselves. So I love that, being kind to yourself. Excellent. I think that's a great perspective to wrap up on. So go ahead and close out then. Again, Dr. Blacher, we appreciate you for joining us to share your experience and your journey towards success. And we wish you the best and hope you take some time to celebrate.
Thank you very much. I definitely will.